Today on the Winning With Shopify podcast.
The nice thing about e-commerce is one of the places where all this sort of data comes together.
The fascinating thing was from the outside, it always looks so rosy.
With TK Maxx, you had the problem of products coming and going.
But what's the next thing? We don't want to just faff about doing best practice anymore. We've tried that.
We made this change. What was it meant to do and what did it do is a crucial part for me.
Well done, Nick. Revenue's down significantly, and that's what we asked for. So well done. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Winning With Shopify podcast. If you've never tuned in before, it's a pleasure having you listen to the show. My name's Nick and I run a PPC SEO agency. I've been hosting the show since 2020 and it's a pleasure having you tuning in. If you've been tuning in for a while and you've not clicked subscribe, you're part of the majority at the moment, the silent majority. So please click subscribe on whatever platform you're on. Leave us a review. If it's not 5 stars, please come have a chat. We're always interested to hear how we can improve the show. If it is 5 stars, fantastic. Chuck it in there and we'll see what you guys love about the place. We have just announced, it was last week we announced it, and I mentioned it on Tuesday in a bit more detail. We are doing a Shopify Summit, an unofficial, we're calling it, the unofficial Shopify Summit on the 1st of September this year, 1st September 2026. If you want to see all the content, I think almost all of it is going to go live on the 1st of September. So feel free to go to our website, www.spodcast.com. Sign up, you'll join the newsletter and you'll be the first to hear about that summit as it gets ready. We may also tease some of the content out in advance and you'll get some exclusive access to a few bits and pieces. If you want to share your brand story or you're a tech tool, an app or anything else, you can come on and sponsor, you can speak, or come and have a chat with us about how you can get involved in the summit in a number of other ways as well. Again, there's a form on that page or you can email us hello@winningwithshopify.com. Now, today, I'm bringing somebody on that I've known since 2012, and I'm very excited for today. And we were just joking before we hit record. We're going to try not to get too technical, but we do know each other very well, and we love getting deep into data and lots of other things. So without further ado, Tom, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing now?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. And if anyone's like, okay, you've known this guy Tom for a while and he likes data. Tom, tell us a bit more. What's your background? Where were you working when we first met? And what are you doing now?
Okay, so I started off a degree in business management, and then at the same time, the e-commerce world was really sort of ramping up back in the early noughties, and it looked as an interesting thing to get into. And I really sort of changed course and got involved with multimedia and all the video and all those bits and pieces, even some 3D modeling, and everything kept coming back to coding and the need to sort of learn that. So I really pushed into just development and really learning all the different sort of skills you could do in that sphere. That ticked along nicely, and then back in it was about 2010, I got introduced to Vendor, which was one of the original e-commerce as a service providers.
I remember it well. Yes, what a nightmare that was.
There are pros and cons.
Yeah.
If you know what you're doing, you could do a lot quite quickly, or you could just break it quite quickly too. I got introduced to lots of different e-commerce brands, so it was really nice to sort of experience the small startups all the way through to the larger players. And from there, got involved with TK Maxx, got on well with them, and started just doing bits and pieces for them, and that led into joining them. And initially on the development side of things, but it was a great time. You got to get involved with lots of different bits and pieces, and that sort of quickly grew from just the development side of it to more of the SEO, the analytics, and then even more of the sort of product photography and how that was being created and how we could automate a lot of that, how we could bring that in-house. Got to go to lots of interesting conferences where one of them you were doing a speech, and that's how we met.
I was. So, I just sold an agency and was like, I need some work. And I think it was Ollie at Vendor. He was a lovely guy, Ollie. He was so helpful. And I think I found with you guys as well, like as soon as you ask on these kind of small niche platforms, and it's very much still the same today on some of them. It's like, if you're a big enough brand, a big enough player, if you ask for something, they just kind of go and build and develop it for you. And it doesn't sort of cost you in dev time, which is quite nice as well. But yeah, I remember it well. I was looking for some work and was delighted to find that TK Maxx was one of the brands from that talk I did, which was, fantastic. So
I went through my email and I found the email from Ollie saying, Nick just asked if he can contact you. I was like, okay. But it was good timing because I think at the time we were really, the site had been live for a few years and already it started to sort of creak a bit where bad practice sort of creeped in. And it was the real first time where I could see the pros and cons of these sort of sites where you have a lot of control and the need to get on top of things. There was an SEO agency at the time, which I couldn't really connect the good and the bad output from it. So at the time we paused that agency. So when we met you, we'd done a lot of the work in house, and just through following sort of standard best practice of tidying things up, don't let things sort of stay there in the background. We were making really good improvement, but at that point we we're just sort of looking to get some additional help, which is where we met you and got you involved as well. So it was a really good time.
Yeah. And it was fascinating, I think, getting involved and actually seeing that. And this is what we want to talk about today, really. And one of two big topics we're going to discuss is actually when you're on the outside of some of these big corporate companies. I mean, it was what, a $2 billion global business. So TJ Maxx for you guys in the US, TK Maxx here in the UK, and there's obviously stores around Europe and other places as well. But the fascinating thing was, from the outside, it always looks so rosy, and on the inside, there are some massive advantages having that big brand behind you. And we're going to talk a little bit about that as we go through. But I think it's easy, I think, from the corporate side, isn't it, to look at the startups and go, wow, they just come up with an idea and by the afternoon they've executed. You know, there's no rounds of management, there's no decision makers, there's no budget meetings, we've got to wait till budget and then we kind of agree that, we put it forward, you've got to write a case for it. On a startup, it all looks great because you're sitting in front of the founder and you can say, I want to change this to blue. And they're like, yeah, make it blue. Whereas on the corporate side, you can look at that and go, wow, they're such a big brand and they're clearly successful to get to where they are. They must know exactly what they're doing. But actually, there's a lot of similar both challenges and advantages in both sides, aren't there? I mean, do you want to talk about how different you found it, especially kind of going into TK Maxx, certainly internally, and having that brand behind you, having budget if you ask for it, because it's, 0.00001% of each transaction you're really asking for to potentially have a, seismic increase if said project goes well.
I think it's I was very fortunate in my timing. It was a very large, successful company with lots of stores around the world, and e-commerce was developing. They just started out on a few product categories initially, and was really sort of growing it out. So I was very lucky with my timing. It was a sort of a startup backed by the sort of the budgets of an enterprise client, and we were able to really sort of push on and get on with things. We were lucky to have a good small team. Everyone was very knowledgeable in what they were working on. So it was good to begin with. As you say, we had the budgets, they had the motivation of the enterprise to really grow e-commerce and also learn as much as possible. And it was a time when there wasn't really lots of the sort of lessons hadn't been sort of written down yet. So a lot of it was trial and error and just sort of really get going to see what would work and didn't work. And as I say, for me, that worked well because I was in control of the code base and in control of where the sort of the CMS and all the products all came together. So we were aware of a lot of the sort of legacy IT systems, all the old databases and all those things you don't really want to have to deal with, you're suddenly exposed to. And the nice thing about e-commerce, it's one of the places where all this sort of data comes together. And it was really seen as an opportunity where we could actually start feeding a lot of the insight back into the wider business, because we could see things the store side of things couldn't see. So it was really interesting. As I say, it was also a time where we were starting to unstitch a lot of the initial outsourced services, a lot of the outsourced agencies or warehouse side of things, and really sort of bring that in as well. So we were able to really sort of lead and direct where we saw we could make these improvements. As you say, as things grow, things sort of get written down more and it gets a bit more stabilized. So then you're introduced to more of that sort of the frustration of the larger business and how you sort of get things done, budget sign off, and a lot of socializing ideas to get those agreed and bought into. So as you say, there's always that sort of pros and cons to everything.
Yeah. And I remember, I love the way you use that balance actually of like, it was almost like a startup with an enterprise backing. This episode of Winning with Shopify is brought to you by TaxCloud. It's the busiest time of year for e-commerce. Your store's buzzing, orders flying in, and growth is at an all-time high. But with all that momentum can come new sales tax exposure that you might not even see coming. That's why now is the perfect time to take a closer look at how you're handling sales tax and make sure your business is set up for the growth that you've earned. TaxCloud is our trusted partner for sales tax compliance, built for growing Shopify brands. They handle regulations, filings, and ongoing compliance, working directly with the states on your behalf across the US, so you can stay focused on running your store. They got a 5-star rating in the Shopify App Store, and listeners of Winning with Shopify get free migration onboarding when you make the switch. To apply for that and learn more, you can go to taxcloud.com/winning. That's taxcloud.com/winning. I remember from an SEO point of view, the question you and the team were always asking me was like, how do we move faster? Like, or not so fast, but what's the next thing? Like, we don't want to just faff about doing best practice anymore. We've tried that. And I remember some of the fascinating projects that we started to work on. One, which I don't think you were directly involved in, but you would have helped with kind of execution side of it, was we looked at what we called it the keyword calendar, and it ended up being literally, and if this sounds like boring and slow progress, 18 months in, I was still adding data to it. I was still growing this thing. And it was just a giant spreadsheet. But what it was for a business like TK Maxx, it's fascinating seeing that you had that nimble internal element to it of like, actually, we could pivot our product categories quickly. And I always remember one of the best examples of this was prom dresses. There was, I think someone renamed the prom dress category at the beginning of Jan. And by mid-Jan, I was like, why are we selling so few dresses on SEO? And realized everyone's buying prom dresses from TK Maxx. And it was a unique thing to TK Maxx. It was like brand meets search demands. And I don't, from all the data I could look at, I couldn't see any other retailers were actually doing well in that space, which made us realize that our customer buying cycle was so unique because we weren't selling brand new stuff that had just been manufactured. We also weren't allowed to lead with brands. That was a fascinating project of like remove all these URLs from Google, which is like the opposite of what I'm normally.
The opposite thing you'd want to do, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But it was like, well done, Nick. Revenue's down like significantly, and that's what we asked for. So well done. That was fortunately it came back up through other means. But I think that it was just fascinating actually some of these projects that came out of the woodwork. But I would say that there was still probably sort of slow progress in some areas, which was like using that keyword calendar in front of the merchandising team, saying when you're buying merchandise, when you're buying product to put on the actual kind of digital shelf, if you like, on the website, use this calendar to buy the right things at the right time. There was, the PR agency was a global business-wide PR agency. So little ecom team down here with a bit of help from me knocking on the door. It took a while to open that door, where actually in a startup, you could move some of those doors quicker and actually have like an aligned SEO, PR, merchandising strategy very quickly. But again, it's those pros and cons, isn't it? You don't have then the brand behind you once you do have that alignment of actually our PR now talks about the right keywords at the right time, linking to the right places. But I think it was, as you say, as it started to grow, there were some of these lessons like the prom dress one of like, no, these categories cannot be touched. They must be live on these dates. And if not, it's like some system somewhere needs to flag somebody to tell them to do that. And again, those were some of the outputs, I think, of the trial and error.
That's another bit is how people sort of come and go. And the need to maintain that sort of organizational understanding of what you've done, because people come in and out of the team. So you might get stuff into a good place for 6 months, a year, but if there's a change in team, you've got to make sure people sort of remember where they're at and what they're doing. And when you talk about calendar, again, it's the whole idea of having the strategy and the rigor to put a key term in place, timetable in place. So no, you commit to doing what you're doing in 6 months time, a month's time, because you've got to be ready for it. Things take longer and you need to be ready. I mean, the obvious example is always Black Friday and peak. What do you need to have ready before? And in larger companies, you need to get that stuff done earlier just to make sure you're ready for it. Things take time to sign off.
Yeah. And so, I mean, some of our clients, they have like a 2-year lead time to product. So they need to know how much product they need to order from the factory because the quantity they need to produce to have it in all the retailers they sell through their own store, etc. So actually some of that is incredibly hard to predict. And you almost need to say like, we just need to kind of guesstimate it for the next 3-4 years before we can actually start to build a bit of a forecast on that. I think it's interesting as well, just the way you guys acquired product obviously is quite unique compared to someone who manufactures their own or pays a manufacturer to make it for them or drop ships. Those are the three kind of normal camps, whereas you guys were buying product from other places, which again, it's pros and cons, isn't it? There were some pros and some cons to being given a product that has already been merchandised for some time on other sites. But from an SEO point of view, we want to have it unique. From a customer point of view, we need to put our brand and kind of tone on top of it without actually undervaluing or whatever, or breaking brand guidelines of the brand that's given it to you, or they won't give you any more products. So there were some of these restrictions, weren't there, where it's like, although people, again, may look from the outside at these, kind of massive corporate enterprises and say, well, they've obviously got all their ducks in a row. Actually, under the hood, there's so many different caveats and things we've got to manage.
It does. But I think that's where I always say, like with e-commerce, it still comes back to the product offering or the customer service, the delivery side of it. But fundamentally, it's still just a website. So with TK Maxx, you had the problem of products coming and going. So for most retailers, you've got the same products sat there year in, year out, or at least for the whole season. So again, for us, it's more a case of how do you utilize the sort of website to support that. What you don't want to trick Google if things are coming and going. So what can you use out of this sort of toolbox of web standards to do that? So the obvious one was server redirects and all those things, just to make sure you're getting that right. So I think I'd always say, whether it's an enterprise or a tiny sort of one-man band, you're still supporting a website, and you still got to optimize that site to support your business model.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you say, that's the same in any business of any size. And I think it's fascinating as well to hear, or hopefully fascinating for a lot of you guys that are kind of more startup or founder-led e-commerce sites using Shopify. It's like actually hearing Tom say, like, we've all just got a website. It's the same amount of pixels on the screen. It's what we do with them, and all the basic things still apply. Hopefully, that gives some of you guys a bit of a bit of a motivation that actually some of these big retailers that you just can't seem to catch up with on in terms of turnover or rankings on SEO, or the rate in which they seem to produce the best ad copy. So actually, you've all got the same challenge. So like, how do you level that field and go, well, we can't do that, but we can do something else, and we can do it quickly, and we can do it more nimbly.
I mean, on that, I'd definitely say, I mean, obviously, it's you're limited to your own sort of time budgets, but if you can get the right skills in place, it's a great way that you can actually get ahead of things, because you are in control of your site more. And if you're in control of what you're doing, you can sort of implement, test, and learn things more quickly. And as long as you've got that process in place to test and learn, is that it can be an advantage. You can sort of get going more quickly and learn more quickly from what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's an interesting point actually to segue into another question I've got, certainly for those kind of smaller or scaling businesses or growing businesses. I know a lot of our listeners, a lot of you guys are in that, either in that scaling growing space or want to be. That's obviously aspirations to get to that point. We'll come on to your kind of what you're doing with data in a minute, Tom, but you work with some brands at the moment, advising them on like how to bring kind of all the agency partners or the internal people all together to actually understand like whether it's the tech stack or it's the way they're merchandising the site, the way the site's built. Shopify, you obviously know Shopify very well now. And one of the biggest issues we get is how many apps people are using. And it's like, you've got 10 apps that all do the same thing. So you could probably get rid of 3 or 4 of them and just have this one that does 8 things now. And you're already paying for that, less page load, everything else. So what are some of the pitfalls you find brands are really struggling with? Like if you took, so between a 10 to 100 person organization using Shopify, what are some of the common things people struggle with and some of the solutions that you help them find?
I think a lot of it is just, as I say, getting the methodology in place to really sort of make sure that what you're doing is adding value to the business. I think there can often be a tendency of just doing stuff is a sign of success and progress. So just making a change to the site can often just be, that's the result you wanted, but you're not really sure if it really did or didn't make any changes. And I think the challenge of websites is there's the look and feel of what you can see, but then there's obviously the things you can't see, which are hiding back in the browser, things called like the data layer, and how you're collecting analytics into your platform, and also all these plugins sort of hiding in the background doing stuff you're not quite sure. And I think you can easily ignore that. You can just sort of focus on the look and feel of the site and not sort of get too bogged down in it. But you've always got to remind yourself that it is a website, and this is how all these parts fit together that's really going to sort of help you grow profitably and focus on that side of it. So I think certainly for what I'm doing at the moment is really trying to help improve the conversation internally in these companies, either internally or with their suppliers and agencies, to make sure everyone's having the correct discussions on what they're doing, what are they actually really trying to do, but then crucially, how are they going to decide if what they did really made a difference or not, and make sure that what they're doing is really sort of delivering on their sort of key objectives. Because I think that's where we can really sort of focus on improving and really be on top of what those changes are doing and what they're resulting in. Really challenge yourself to understand, we made this change, what was it meant to do and what did it do is a crucial part for me. One of the nice things I said working in a big enterprise was certainly the ability to get involved with lots of different training and focus on different skill sets. So when we onboarded, when we brought our photo studio in house, I was able to get really involved with the whole sort of automation side of that, and really involved with the sort of the continuous improvement, sort of Six Sigma methodology of process improvement. And again, that really sort of took me down a different path of really being sort of strict with yourself to commit to what you're trying to change, and analyzing, did that really give the output you wanted. So for me, that was certainly where we got really pushed into GA and getting much better at the time of the enhanced e-commerce data layer updates. So getting really crystal clear data into it. also really pushing into BigQuery, which I think can intimidate people, but it's the sort of the database where you can really interact with all that sort of raw GA data. But I would say now with ChatGPT, it's a lot easier to integrate that data now, and you can really sort of work with it and get to that sort of hit level where you can really start being clear about where do people come and go on in your funnel. So that was a key one. And then also at the same time, we really pushed into A/B testing. It was good timing for us. It was when there were some newer A/B testing tools coming out, and we're really able to sort of make use of those sort of new features. And at the time, I really thought it was going to be like the sort of answer everything A/B testing. So we really sort of pushed into it, and then actually realized how hard it is to get sort of meaningful, consistent, and reliable updates. I think we really pushed it for a year or so, and then realized how tiring and how hard it was when we weren't really fully on top of our data as well. So that's where it sort of looped back into the sort of quantitative and qualitative data to really sort of help us build out our A/B testing with better insights to sort of balance it out.
Yeah. I mean, all right, I've written down three different avenues we can go down here, Tom. And it's one of the reasons, if anyone's listening, going like, okay, Tom knows his stuff. It's one of the reasons I love Tom is you're the first web guy for a start who's ever gone into a photography studio. I'm convinced of that. Like, but how fascinating. And I think there's a lesson for all of us actually in what you've just described, which is how often do we look at a web page, or especially on mobile, where most people tend to shop most products, majority these days are mobile, and it's like, how often do we actually just load up a mobile screen and go, what's the obvious thing I'm actually staring at compared to what I'm doing in my inbox or on Slack or spreadsheets, whatever, or changing web code or apps and things in the back of Shopify. How often do we actually just land on a page and go, right, Google Shopping drives what percentage of our revenue? Therefore, these are the main products people land on. What's the first thing they see? A giant photograph of the product. And it's like, does it have to be a photograph? Could it be an animation? Could it actually be 3D? And going back to the photography studio, talking to those guys and going, this is actually the photography we want to now test to see what happens. I think it's fantastic. And the thing I actually wrote down before that, which I think is on the same thread as this, is, and I say it's a lot on the show, guys, is go and buy your own product. Buy it, see what text messages you get, see how it gets delivered. I had a founder we're working with at the moment. They're doing about sort of 15 million a year turnover. And I said to the founder, go and buy your own product. He's like, I know every single nut and bolt of this business. I was like, great, buy a product, come back and tell me you knew it all and it's all fantastic. Because I bought one the other day and I wasn't very happy, but I'm not going to tell you what I wasn't happy about until you've done it as well. I want to know what you think. And he said it didn't arrive in a box, it arrived in a bag. The product was not damaged, but the casing of the product was slightly scuffed. I said, yeah, I bought 3 items. They were all scuffed on the boxes. It's not the nicest thing when you open it. And he said, well, actually, the plastic bags we're using are more expensive than if I put it in a cardboard box. It's like, well, there you go. You've made a cost saving and improved the delivery. He also got 3 notifications that morning, one from Shop app, one from DPD saying we're delivering your product, and one from the brand saying your product's going to be delivered today. It's just too much. And 2 of them actually had slightly different time estimates. It arrived in the same window that they both crossed over. But I think just buying your own product and seeing the photography and, almost sort of sitting with a customer and going, just, speak out loud, tell me everything you're thinking and seeing while you go through this process. But that's one of the reasons I used to love working with you, Tom, is you sort of take this other view of going, I know we're talking about the page speed right now, but just context, how important is it? Like if it was 5 points better, that's a bit of work for everybody. And we're going to need to test that. And we need to make sure we're confident in our data to know we've done 5%. Is it going to have that much of an uplift? Or actually, do we need to be aiming so far from here that commercially it's not viable right now to be doing this project?
On that, I'd add 2 things. So firstly, just initially, was certainly when you're running your own site, you look at it day in, day out, and you really become basically blind to it. You start sort of telling yourself what's there and really sort of challenge yourself to look at it from a new user. Or what we do, we automate a lot of the testing for the site, so we can come back saying, well, what we saw, and even basic things like where's the review, or where's the any sort of social proof or anything like that. And someone will often say, well, it's there, but when you actually look at the site, it's actually not on the page, or it's not near where the key sort of call to action is. So I think a lot of it is constantly challenging yourself to really look at the site from a fresh perspective, whether that's getting someone else to look at it, whether it's automating it. But you tell yourself things are there because you look at it day in, day out, which I think is a big problem.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree. And just to touch on reviews, this one was fresh yesterday, and I've actually got a call in 3 hours with this client as well too. So I won't say what day we're recording in case you work out who you are, but one of our clients, they've got over 1,000 reviews. It's 4.8, 4.9 stars or whatever. It all looks fantastic. So they've put them on every product page on Shopify. Do you ever find that in your warehouse you have dead stock? You can't sell it, no one wants to buy it, and you can't get a refund on it. Or alternatively, you're missing inventory in your warehouse that you need. You've got sales coming in and you're low on stock and you haven't ordered more stock in time. All these things hit profit, and I've been there. I've run my own Shopify store and had exactly that problem. But we've partnered it up with Inventory Planner, who have the most incredible app to help you manage that and forecast exactly what products, what SKUs, even down to what color of product you need to order in advance to make sure stock levels remain consistent throughout. They're also running a 7-day boot camp. And if you want to go and sign up to that, it's 7 emails over 7 days. And it takes the same amount of time as your morning coffee. And in 7 days, like me, you can become an inventory management pro. Both links are in the description. Enjoy. The problem is over 3/4 of those reviews are service reviews. So 3/4 of their products, it was just by chance happened to be 3/4 of the reviews were service and 3/4 of the products actually have no reviews. So if you imagine your web page as an advert, is how I always refer to it, you are actively advertising that you have no reviews. Why would you do that? It's very simple. You're setting your tech stack up correctly on Shopify. And this isn't even an A/B. I mean, if I like A/B testing stuff because I like seeing that we fixed something that seemed obvious, but how much uplift did we have? And like you say, 90% of the time, the A/B tests actually come back that there wasn't too much difference on the surface. I'm going to talk about that in a minute because we're going to talk about data. And I think that's an interesting point to touch on. But the reviews, certainly, you're advertising that you're not a good brand or this is not a good product because we don't have any reviews on this. So the solution is if you don't have any reviews or you have less than 5 on the products, just show the service reviews and just say we're a great company. And it's a very simple bit of script or an app you could probably use in Shopify just to toggle between those two things. So if we've got 5 reviews on this product, show the product reviews. If we don't, show the service reviews, show what a fantastic company we are, or maybe always just serve the service reviews either way. 5 product reviews, 1,000 service reviews. People love us. You may never have heard of us, but come by. And I think that's a good kind of challenge back to the corporates, like we were talking about earlier. Corporate companies tend to have good awareness and people just trust them the moment they land on a page. Whereas the smaller retailers, we need to prove that. We need to prove that we're good because you've never heard of us. And this might be, hopefully not, but this might be the only time you shop with us. We've got to make sure it's a good experience to make sure it's not the only time you shop with us. Make sure you want to come back. So it's interesting though, isn't it, Tom? Just kind of holding that balance really of like, reviews are great, but they've got to be implemented properly. And if not, and I think you almost set that example to like 50 different things on a site.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's we certainly learned through the A/B testing side of things. A lot of the improvements were your sort of standard sort of psychological behavioral impacts, which again, I didn't go in expecting to find these things, but things like social proof, things like value messaging, urgency were really we tested it and it just kept coming up that same way, and really focusing on these things which you don't need a really expensive A/B testing setup to sort of start implementing and thinking about these things. Yeah. So getting that balance,
especially on Shopify. Yeah, so many apps you can pick up starting at $50 a month, and it's like, how many products do you need to sell to make return on that? And it's like, so you only need a 2% uplift. So when you do the maths, it's like, it's a no-brainer. Get the tool and start using it. But as you say, and sorry to interrupt you then, but just, the hypothesis on an A/B test I find is fundamental, and it's got to be, I tend to err on the side of quantitative, not qualitative ones.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's talk about data, which we are already. The point I want to make on A/B testing, and I want to get your thoughts on this and see how much you've seen this. We've done plenty of tests which you might get an output where there's been like a 5% drop in revenue. So logic says, well, we shouldn't be rolling this thing out, should we? And I think the thing we learned very, very quickly, and obviously we've got the advantage at an agency, so we work across lots of sites and we can test, where should we put the reviews and how should we show the reviews as an example on 10 different sites, and we get 10 different sets of learnings, and then we kind of digest which works where and why. The point I want to make though is it comes back to the point you made about data and actually using, I think certainly someone like TK Maxx, definitely using BigQuery to put all the data in one place and get what you need from it, and actually do kind of like raw binary server log analysis. Like that's what you've got to do to really get down to the nuts and bolts. But that -5 or -10% revenue test output, we sometimes find that actually, as soon as you start to drill back into the data, you actually find that when people are on these products or these collections, or it's this particular user, conversion could be up like 30, 40%. But then these guys, it has dropped, which means suddenly you've got some very complicated work on your hands of like, actually, we need to modify the site in different areas based on different journeys for the customer. But that is the sacrifice of time and potentially cost that brands need to make, in my opinion, if they're really, really, absolutely dead strong on going, we're going to sell our every single product in the best possible way. And it's just deciding based on the volumes of, we only sell one of that product, so there's no point doing too much on it. We'll apply a blanket there. But this one here, we sell one of them every 5 minutes. And actually the output of the test is we need to have a separate theme or something. How often did you guys drill into the data and find that?
Well, I think that ties a lot to the actual metrics you're going after. So I think we're fortunate the tools we're using really, really educated us on the importance of RPV, so revenue per visitor. So that was sort of taking the really nice mix of the conversion rate, which is what often people go for, but also your order value and what are you actually really trying to improve. Because if you really wanted to just improve conversion rate, you could just drop your prices and you would get a great improvement in conversion rate, but you will be making less money. So for us early on, focusing on revenue per visitor, which is the amalgamation of conversion rate and how much people are spending, and also focusing at the user level. So it's the accumulation over a period of time really helped us sort of focus on what was actually making a difference to the metric we wanted to go after, which was how much money you're making from each individual person rather than just conversion rate, which I think can be very, very short-term focus, and you're trying to make money at the end of the day. So you need to make them improve basket value and improve conversion rate, and that's what's going to get you the RPV improvements.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting you mentioned RPV. We not to play a game of poker and say call and raise, but we recently have started. We're using a couple of tools to bring this together. It started like all good things with spreadsheets, and now it's led to finding a couple of tools that do this. We're starting to look at profit per user, and I think this again is somewhere where actually a lean, mean startup can sometimes trump actually a corporate is having the lean element of using something like Shopify, where actually if you put your cost of product in Shopify, and Shopify has built in all of those fields and the reports to show you that actually if somebody buys this product, say there's two products at $100 each, one makes you $30 profit, one makes you $80 profit. So I think the revenue per visitor is a fantastic start. And if no one's using anything, then I would definitely lean onto that. And don't get me wrong, probably half our brands we work with have not put the price of product to work out the margins into Shopify itself. As soon as you do, suddenly you're using Google Ads and things like that completely different, because you're suddenly using Google Ads and going, I'm getting a 1.5 ROI and making more profit than I used to at like a 5-to-1 ROI. And it's like we're only at 1.5 now because we're targeting our 90 to 95% margin items. And we only need to sell a handful of them, and we're basically printing money with this. It's fantastic.
I mean,
which is fascinating.
I mean, I think that's perfect. I think that's where we're at now. I think getting hold of that to focus on profit, you need to get hold of that relevant data in a timely manner. So again, I think the larger the business, probably the more legacy the systems are, the harder it is to get that relevant data in a timely manner. And again, so the smaller the company, and with the infrastructure provided by Shopify, again, you're able to really sort of start making these much more powerful decisions, and you don't need to be a large enterprise to do that.
Yeah, and I almost think it inhibits a large enterprise a bit, because you'll have the problem with legacy. You mentioned legacy systems. The problem I found with, and this is not unique to TK Maxx at all, but almost every business we've worked with are kind of like 50 million turnover plus per year. You have systems that are actually stuck on like big contracts, and it's like we can't change it. You just need to lump it for now. We can change it in 2 years' time. And it's like, which system should we put forward? It's like, no idea. Like I have no idea what's going to be going on in 2 years. And I think that's where some enterprise brands have, and again, this is not TK Maxx at all. They're doing very, very well, but lots of enterprise companies have gone under. They've struggled actually, and not just because of contracts, but they've struggled to optimize quickly enough and digitalize things quickly enough that. And again, it's to catch up. So even when we talk about the profit margins, there's never been a time you can move stock around the world as cheaply as you can now. There's never been a time where you can merchandise stock as fast as you can. You used to have to sort of order samples and then choose the product you wanted. And none of this was done digitally. It was all done face to face. And then the digital world came out. So there are some businesses that are still stuck with that. So again, if you're if you're working in a big corporate, I think trying to find some of those systems. But again, I said it twice already, but the reason I used to love working with you so much, Tom, was you'd always bring it back to like, are we actually going to make more revenue doing this? Like, is this for the customer, or are we just kind of fixing stuff in the warehouse? So it was like, there probably will be a commercial benefit, but we need to put a number on that, or at least a target, because it changes priorities, it changes budgets, and it changes how important it is in the tech mix. And I think the revenue per visitor is one of the metrics you guys pulled out, going, when that goes up, the whole business does well. And that's why we need to focus on that thing. Talk us through, though, because all this relies on the data. Talk us through some of the issues you've been finding over the last couple of years, and you've helped us with a couple of clients as well on this. Some of the issues you're finding with people's actual data collection from GA4, and just not even looking at the right numbers, even if they have them.
I mean, I think with data, it's challenging, it's hard. And I think one of the big problems is something like you sign into a nice interface like GA and it looks the part. And I think there's often two problems. One is, as you say, is the data going in collected accurately? And is it what it should be? But the other problem is often the user looks at a report and assumes that report is telling them what they want it to tell them, rather than what the actual sort of the data is saying. So I think starting from there, we really focused on, again, just defining a key user journeys. Don't get bogged down in all the dashboards. The whole point of data is meant to be supporting decisions and supporting sort of efficient decisions. So we really focused on defining some key user journeys. Again, we were lucky because it was when the GA Enhanced eCommerce update came. So we really sort of focused on core journeys and made sure that those journeys had the correct data every step of the way. So many things can go wrong if you're not really sort of looking at every step. I think often we would find things might change. So on the PDP, you had a product for £20, but then in the basket, for some reason, that's changed to $19.99, or any odd sort of quirks through the journey, which is something hard to identify, but certainly where we found sort of really sort of rich wins was making sure that data is consistent the whole way through the funnel, because every step of the way it needs to be the same as the step before, or you start sort of getting deviations in the accuracy of it. I would say there's a tendency to get once you get going, start trying to do too much too soon, and it's really trying to get defined what you're looking at and what decisions you're actually trying to support, because the flip side is you end up with too much data and no one's actually using it. So I think where we approached it was, the data is obviously important, but you need to really think about why you're using that data, who's going to use it, what decisions are going to be made on the back of it. Are people trusting that data? Are people interested in using it and discussing it? Or there's a risk of it just becoming sort of another silo, another thing to support, but it's not really being used. I think often when you sort of think about your business, really consider what are the decisions you're making on your site to impact performance. And obviously that will often be, say, homepage updates, nav updates, search sort of tweaking the algorithm or PLP updates. And when you're making each of these changes, what data are you using to actually support those decisions? And also, when you make the change, what are you doing to really consider if that change had an impact or not? Because I think where with analytics, you can really stop thinking in terms of just someone coming onto the site and did they buy or not buy. It's a case of, where did they come into the site? I mean, originally it was always the homepage, but now with much more sort of Google Shopping, a lot of people are coming onto PDPs, product detail pages. So again, it's sort of, when they come there, what are the bits you're doing to really get them across the line into the checkout and to make a purchase? So I think really the data analytics is important, but the first stage is acknowledging you want it and getting that sort of process in place to say, this is the data we're going to get. We're going to make sure it's accurate and we trust it, and then we're going to use it. We're going to use it in a sort of timely, whether that weekly or monthly or daily fashion, to make sure it's supporting what we're doing.
I'm going to give an example of where the data was completely misleading, and it's probably happening on most of your stores from you guys listening. And this was an enterprise client. They sell products that are quite often gifted as a gift. That's what gifting is. So what they do is they sell a lot of gift cards as well as products. And then when somebody buys a gift card, GA4, Shopify, etc., report back someone's bought a gift card that's £100 or $100, bought on a gift card. Congratulations. When someone then comes back to use the gift card then is used as a payment method, and the report says this person's bought £100 or dollars worth of products. So you've made so that's $100 of sales again. But the gift card was used, and it still says £100. So you've reported £200 of revenue, but only £100 has actually hit your bank account. And some very simple things like that where you need to make a decision. What we did in that situation is every gift card that was bought, we actually set something in for GA4 that would half the amount of the gift card amount. So we basically attribute 50% of it. So if you bought a £500 gift card, £250 of revenue right now, if a gift card was used as a payment method, whatever amount of gift card was used, divided by 2. And use half again. Because then we can attribute some revenue to the fact that we convince someone to buy something. So that's marketing doing its job, and they use the gift card. But we also initially convinced someone to buy a gift card, and therefore we've got the revenue there as well. It got a bit more complicated when they started opening stores, because then you'd buy one online, use it in store. So we just had to. So what we did is we basically just created a whole second report and go, that's gift card only activity, whether it's buying a gift card, buying a product. So I think there's a lot of things like that where, like just as you've just said, Tom, making those decisions using the correct data is a complete game changer for what you're trying to do. Classic one is how many people type in our brand and click on our Google ads and then purchase stuff. That's data. It's not as readily available as it used to be in Performance Max, but that has become more readily available by Google. And there's ways you can check if people are typing in your brand name, even if you didn't have the search terms. But actually you do want to split someone that's already, we've marketed to them enough, now they're just entering the funnel. You want to split those guys off from Google ads doing net new customer acquisition, where it's just someone going, I just want to buy a t-shirt, I've clicked on your ads. So I think there's loads of examples of that. And I think TK Maxx was not unique in this either. You mentioned about like Google Shopping, people landing on products. We've had so many brands, and it did work at TK Maxx. Is the merchandising team were always fighting for the homepage, weren't they, Tom? It was like, if I can get my lights that I've bought, my ceiling lamps, if I can get those on the homepage, they'll just sell. And everyone thought that was the be all and end all. And we had to set some. I mean, it was more you than me, but from an SEO point of view, it's like Google's not even going to look at this because the content's changing so frantically. And as you say, if we do the SEO well, the PPC is doing what it should, actually people won't be landing on the homepage, they'll be landing on the right collection, the right
Well, I mean,
products.
I'd add to that. I think it was also the more data you try to use, the more you're trying to encourage the sort of the informed discussion and stop whoever's shouting loudest or paid the most getting the right of way.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it, again, I think the nice thing about the more you sort of focus on the technology, on your data, it's forcing you to look at what's actually going on. And often you'll look at stuff and notice other things you would never have noticed. So even if you never get to a sort of really nice place with all your data and your perfect funnel, you're forced to be exposed to all these other things which you just wouldn't really sort of consider. And it can really sort of elevate how you look at your site, what you're sort of thinking and focusing on.
Yeah, absolutely. And just coming into land then, Tom, last question from me is, how much do you want to or can share about the tool you're building? And we will get you back on when it's sort of ready for public release, and we're going to absolutely be testing it and seeing what it can do for our clients. But yeah, tell us a bit about what you're actually constructing off the back of all this. You know, your career at TK Maxx so far. We're not there anymore, but your career at TK Maxx and everything you've been learning and what you've built.
So I think the crux, because I've had sort of two sides to my career. One was certainly the technical side, and then the other side was more just the sort of e-commerce as an out, sort of focus on e-commerce and the business side of it, was how hard it is to make these two sides work well and cleanly together. And I think when you have your sort of technical hat on, you're kind of frustrated and don't really see why certain decisions are being made. When you've got your sort of business hat on, you're generally just frustrated and confused about why the technology isn't doing what you want it to do, or why it's all costing so much money. So I think where I sort of got to was really trying to use my sort of technical background to really sort of try to educate business leaders and managers in what's actually going on in the background. And with that, you can then really encourage some more informed discussions on what's actually there on the site, and really sort of tie people back to what is there rather than what they think is there. An easy one at the moment is with the rise of AI. Everyone's like, oh, we're doing stuff on AI. But again, tell me exactly what you're actually doing. So we're focusing on the automation of testing of sites, not just looking at one specific page, but the whole user journey through the site, and really sort of trying to get that to sort of discussion on, well, where is your data sort of inconsistent? With Shopify, you often get these Shopify web pixels, which are there through the initial setup, but you don't realize they're duplicating a lot of the data. So let's get those sort of discussions going on what is or isn't working. Focus on the old GDPR, just get it working, and then you sort of don't have to really worry about it anymore. Really focus on AI and how you're sort of feeding the evolution of SEO into sort of how you support AI bots as well, and get that sort of data right as well. And then also, crucially, the whole sort of UX side of things. Again, really challenge your understanding of what the user sees as they go through the site. You might say something's on the page, but if it's on the bottom of the page and they don't scroll to it, they're not even seeing it. So what we're doing is really focusing.
A classic feedback we get from clients, like, why don't you mention this? They're like, we do. It's like paragraph 9 of the product description. You're like, useless. Needs to be an icon at the top next to the price. Like, nice and simple.
So a lot of it is, as I say, just improving the visibility of what's actually happening on the website, giving people more black and white checklist to say, this is technically correct, this isn't correct. You can say, once you've got it in front of you, you can choose as the lead or the manager, say, well, we're not really going to worry about that. But I think the first part is just getting a better conversation between your sort of technology, marketing, sales teams, just to really agree what is there. And then from that stage, you can really sort of build out proper paths to improve what you've got. And through doing that, you're going to be much more efficient and much more focused on getting the results you want.
Yeah, and I think this is fascinating because we put on our website, I think we put 98 or 99% or something, but it's pretty much 100 now. I think the 1 or 2 at the time when we put the stat on our website, I didn't have it, but the stat basically says like every single client we've ever worked with and will ever work with have tracking problems and don't even know it. And as soon as we come in and say the accuracy of this data is way off, like, for example, if you add up how much revenue you've got in Google Ads and then you check that against GA4 and check that against Shopify, you'll have 3 different numbers, 3 completely different numbers. And they might all be correct the way they're attributed as well, but it's understanding that. Because, the difference between 3-to-1 ROI and 4-to-1 ROI is profit or loss. And if you're going to start scaling that up, we need to be absolutely crystal clear it's profit and not loss. So, but look, Tom, appreciate your time so much. And also, I should have said at the start, I texted Tom, 3 hours ago or 4 hours ago, and was like, Tom, are you free today? My guest is cancelled and I need someone amazing. And Tom is amazing. So I've been waiting to get you on for a long time. We will get you back when the tool's ready as well. So thank you so much. Appreciate your time and thanks for everything you shared.
Thank you, Nick.
Good. And for everyone listening at home, again, go and sign up to the summit. It's going to be a complete waste of time if no one actually wants to do it. We're going to have so much cool content on there. If you've got any ideas about it or something you think we should feature or include as well, drop us an email, hello@winningwithshopify.com. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll be back on Tuesday with Tuesday Tea Break Talks and back again next Friday with another amazing interview. So hope you can join us then. Hit subscribe if you haven't and have an amazing weekend. I just want to interrupt today's episode to tell you about some big news for Shopify merchants. Yotpo, which you might be using, is sunsetting its email and SMS products. You may have got an email from them, and if you haven't, this might be the first time you're hearing about this. So if you have been using them, then you might be wondering what's next. Well, our sponsor Seguno has you covered. Seguno is the most deeply integrated email marketing platform for Shopify and makes switching really, really simple with hands-on onboarding, migration help, and deliverability expertise. Right now, with code WWS20, you get 20% off your first 3 months with Seguno. So don't let your marketing skip a beat. Switch to Seguno today at seguno.com/winningwithshopify.